What's up, you guys? It's Sir Scrub here, bringing you some more Scrub Tier Yu-Gi-Oh! Before we get into today's video, please leave a like and subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments section below. With all that junk out of the way, let's get into it. So before we actually get into beating Thunder Dragons as a deck, I want to take some time to talk about the channel as a whole right now. As you saw in my last video and currently are seeing in this one, I found a way to upgrade my editing software to kind of raise the ceiling on what I'm capable of doing and the content I can produce on this channel. Secondly, after doing yesterday's video on how to beat the Danger Dark World FTK, I decided that I rather enjoy this format of video making rather than the generic YouTubing style of here's our deck profile, subscribe and love me. And I want to make this a series going forward. With that being said, let me know what deck you'd like to see featured next time down in the comments section below. And if one isn't chosen, then I get to play mean substitute teacher and pick an unwilling volunteer from the whole slew of archetypes for me to destroy. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into dissecting this deck. So Thunder Dragons are a deck that was created out of the Soul Fusion set, and Konami kind of took the quote-unquote legacy support to a whole new level. For those that don't know, Thunder Dragon and its fusion, Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, are relics of the Paleozoic era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when, normal summon La Jin was the meta. But most importantly, what I want to know is what is the decision-making process on which quote-unquote legacy cards get support? Do they throw a dart at a wall full of old-ass cards and whichever gets hit turns into an archetype? If so, when are they going to turn Urubi into a full-fledged archetype? Laws aside, this deck had immediately solidified itself as a meta contender, taking up a whopping 9 slots of the top 32 at YCS Niagara. So straight out the gate, this deck bitch slapped the meta and called it a pussy. With all that being said, let's look at how to get some revenge and take this deck down. So I'm going to break this video down into 2 major categories. The first being how to combat this deck going first, and the second on how to protect yourself going second. And thus we get into our first card, a simple little floodgate that I absolutely love when facing a boss monster deck, and that is Prohibition. Going into games 2 and 3, when you side this card in, you simply activate it and call Thunder Dragon Colossus, and boom, they can't make their boss monster anymore. Now, there are several issues with this card, which is why I definitely would not suggest main decking it. The first being, if you're going first game 1, you've got no idea what your opponent may be playing, and thus it will truly be a dead card, because it does require you to call a specific card name. However, if you're going to be forced to go second game 1 and they make an underwhelming board, this can be helpful. Secondly, it is a do-nothing card, meaning it doesn't really interact with card economy. It doesn't give you any pluses or minuses. And other than stopping one specific card, it literally doesn't do anything. It simply takes the ability of your opponent to use a specific card and turns it off. With that being said, this card is extremely flexible as a side deck card. Once you know what you're up against, this card can be very impactful. Think about a deck like Trickstars. With this card, you make it to where all the opponent's Candinas are now dead. Same is true for Invoke variants. If you simply call Alistair, the entire Invoked engine falls apart. There are many other uses that I won't go into because, pick a deck, there's a card you can hit. But all in all, it's pretty spicy, but it's not broken, per se. The next Floodgate-esque card I like to side for Thunder Dragons is Imperial Iron Wall. This card straight up prevents cards from being banished, thus making it rather difficult for the Thunder Dragon player to generate card economy. It also stops the fusion monster's ability to protect themselves, thus making them susceptible to removal with things like Urgeki or Nightmare Cerberus. Now, the one glaring problem with this card is its lack of flexibility. See, when I pick cards for these kind of videos, I try to pick cards that can be used in multiple matchups so you don't have just dead cards in your side deck going into game 2 and 3. So what I mean is this card is great against Thunder Dragons, but against Trickstars it's useless. So I try to find cards that have multiple matchups. And that's the main issue with Imperial Iron Wall. Yeah, it makes it to where the Dark Warrior deck running around can abuse Malicious, but that's kind of forcing it. I guess you can use it to hinder Mech Knight Invoked, but why? And that's my real issue with this card. It's great against Thunder Dragons, but basically useless against everything else. The next cards I'm going to talk about I think work best in a pair, and that's both Mind Drain and Soul Drain. Now this little 2-card lock can really make a Thunder Dragon player's life difficult. Mind Drain stops monster effects from being activated in the hand, while Soul Drain prevents them from being activated in the graveyard and banish zone. So basically with both of these cards out on the field, it puts a Thunder Dragon player basically into a pseudo skill drain type situation, since that's the backbone of their deck. Now Soul Drain is limited to 1, so don't expect to see it as much, but Mind Drain can stop all of their hand trap like effects, so they can't discard themselves, and that's what really gets their engine going. Now what I really like about these cards is they are highly flexible. Mind Drain basically says no to all hand traps, while Soul Drain can stop crazy floating decks like BA and says no to Light Sworns. Not to mention it also stops the Dark Warrior deck from using Mali. But these cards really shine against rogue decks. These two make life difficult for a whole host of matchups. Also, Soul Drain can help protect you from the Danger Dark World FTK, negating Grapha's effect in the graveyard. Now the next card is a bit of a stretch, but I think it's an absolute hilarious way of screwing with a Thunder Dragon player. And that card is DNA Surgery. Now before you leave and call me an idiot, hear me out. The main way Thunder Dragon players get their fusion monsters onto the field is by their no fusion effects, in which they contribute a Thunder type monster to special summons themselves straight from the extra deck. And so for all of us trolls out there, flip this bad boy during their standby phase and call, I don't know, Rock or something and make life hard. It's not exactly a top tier strategy or anything, but if you've got somebody at locals you want to troll, this can be a funny option. Just for God's sakes, don't take it to a YCS. And the final, rather generic way of stopping Thunder Dragons going first is straight up negation and disruptions, and I've put the most generic form in the Solemn package. I mean, it's pay life points, stop cards. Now, the one thing I will say about these is you want to be careful with the new time rules because you don't want to pay too many life points going into time. But they are really good cards, and depending on what deck you run, they are main deck worthy because they are the most generic cards on this list. I mean, it's stop card effects. There's not really much to them. So now we'll move into the more difficult portion of this video, what to do when going second. You see, this deck isn't really weak to any one particular hand trap, and things like Impermanence and Veiler can't stop things in the hand, so this is where I got very creative. First strategy I want to talk about is Instant Fusion. You simply drop Instant Fusion, vomit out Thousand Eyes Restrict, snatch up the Colossus or Titan, and then make Link Kariba. So at the cost of 1,000 life points you can out their board. And this little combo does have a lot of flexibility. Being able to non-targeting, non-destruction, get rid of an opponent's monster at the drop of a hat is really powerful, and it can make a lot of different decks life hard. The next funky little card is Eater of Millions. Now if you can afford to play Eater of Millions, cough Trickstars, cough, then it is a wonderful way of getting rid of either of the Thunder Dragon boss monsters. Just drop this hungry boy and banish their monsters face down, then make all your plays in main phase 2. Now, this card is not for every deck. If you rely heavily on your extra deck, you don't exactly want to be banishing all of your monsters. But if you play, like Altergeist, Draco, stuff like that, Crusadia can play this deck really well, stuff like that. Like I said, if you can't afford to play this card, it's a really great way. If not, then we've got other options. Next, we have simple negations like Forbidden Chalice and Infinite Impermanence. Now, I know I said these cards aren't very good against this deck, however, they do have their applications. These cards by themselves, I don't really consider to be an out to the boss monsters, however, they can turn off their effects, making it to where the boss monsters are susceptible to spot removal. These cards are here basically because of how flexible they are. They can be used in a plethora of matches as either disruptions or, like in the Thunder Dragon matchup, way of just turning off problematic monsters. They're overall good cards, and I consider them to be just about as near staple status as they can get. I would not suggest Effect Veiler for this specific matchup because you can't use Effect Veiler during your turn. And the final practical out I want to talk about is the Kaiju Engine. Now these cards are about as powerful spot removal as you can get. These motherfuckers been out here out and boss monsters since they hit the scene. Slumber is still an absolutely powerful card, and every time I've resolved it, I've won the game. Overall, this is a great way of dealing with this deck, and it can also be helpful when having to out extra links or with some rogue decks that are boss monster turbos like Cleafort. But that's all I've got, you guys. I tried to pick some of the not so obvious choices like Mind Control and Book of Eclipse because I wanted to provoke a little more creativity with my card choices. All in all, Thunder Dragons are a powerful deck, and you should definitely not sleep on them. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What cards do you use to stop Thunder Dragons? Also, let me know what deck you want to hear tips on combating in the future. But most importantly, don't forget to be a scrub.